All right. We're all the way here. Of course, you can take that for granted. And we want you to really accept the presence of that energy, not just in your mind, not even just in your emotional states, but in the overall climate and the atmosphere that you live within, in the decisions that you make, in the way that you step forward and contemplate your life. Feeling your way there, having an awareness of the energy and following it thought by thought by thought and step by step. And that it applies to every aspect of your being. So if you're contemplating the day, the energy is there with you in your contemplation, and you can engage it to varying degrees. If you're walking into a crowded place, the energy is there. If you are by yourself, the energy is there. So it is thought by thought, day by day, decision by decision, reorienting yourself into that connection, reorienting yourself, making it your priority, making it a decision, making it a choice, which then becomes another choice, which then becomes another choice, which becomes a habit. And having that knowledge, it can be called faith, it can be called trust, but giving this energy the benefit of the doubt more and more and more. And then, of course, you see it show up more and more and more. And then the trust becomes a knowing. And that's when you're really off and running. So there is no separation. There is no aspect of your life that this process does not apply to. There is no aspect of yourself that this process does not apply to. So that's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're here to talk through, that process, the unfolding.
Thank you, Joseph. You know, when I think about that and when I experience the energy of my inner being, and I know exactly what you're talking about, feeling the energy in this moment, feeling the energy in that moment, feeling energy in the next moment, look at it this way, see the energy. And I guess that I have this expectation then that things are just going to be grand because of that. That things are going to be marvelous. And then I realize I still have judgment, which clouds that sense of things being grand. So, for instance, today I took my mother to have her finger looked at. It's been infected. She's had an operation on it. And the doctor told her that they may need to amputate her finger tomorrow. And here I was thinking, all right, we're going good. Things are great. I feel good. I feel, and then I know it's her experience, but it makes me feel very sad. And I'm not denying that, it shouldn't be sad. It is kind of sad. 86-year-old woman having to have her finger amputated. And maybe not if they can, anyway. But still, the reflection back to me somewhere inside of me is, oh, things aren't grand, things aren't, yeah. And I know we've talked about this going back and forth, so I'm aware of it. But I'm having a hard time with that perspective.
Well, the awareness allows you to choose. And that's what you have this awareness of. You just sort of want us to talk you through that decision and through that choice. Because you have all of these different options, you have all of the different thoughts, you have all of the different possibilities, and it is not your work to, of course, create for another person.
Right.
But rather than us necessarily even giving you the thought, giving you the next step, we want to walk you through the process of being able to discover it for yourself.
Yeah.
So that you're more empowered to make that connection more consistently.
Good.
So just open up that valve, let the thoughts flow and feel and walk yourself through it. And we'll catch you if you go a little bit too far in one direction, and we'll encourage you if you are going in the flow of that inner energy. But we want you to experience this process here for yourself.
Okay. So I love my mother. I have deep compassion for her. I also feel a bit responsible for her happiness because she's living with me now. And I keep thinking, okay, we've got things under control. Things are getting better. Her finger is getting better. She's not feeling dizzy anymore. Things are good, or and I feel love, and I feel love more than anything else. And then wham, we go to the doctor, and the doctor's saying, oh, I don't like the way that looks. Geez, there's a tendon exposed. Oh my gosh, I can see the joint. Geez, we're probably going to have to amputate that. you know and I'm like, what? I don't know if she can take this. I don't know what, she's going to fall apart. Is she going to die?
So you see what you're doing there, of course. That is the back and forth, but what you just offered to us is beyond your control, and that's why it makes you feel helpless, because you cannot change that.
Yeah.
And that's what you just sort of have to accept as a foundation. Now, we're not saying you can't be of service. We're not saying there aren't all sorts of wonderful things you can offer. But when you start to take that responsibility upon yourself,
Right.
it feels like that, because that's not something that is in your power. And you're looking at something that is not within your power. And you're dwelling upon the fact that there is something that you cannot control or positively affect, and then you feel that lack of control, and because you don't have power over it, you feel powerlessness, and
That's
that
it.
leads to more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah, I think in those situations, what I found following this kind of work is like I kind of stop for a moment and I say, okay, this is awful. This sucks. And the next thing I can do is identify how that feels in my body. And I identify if it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. And let's say in this case, it's a bad feeling. And then the only thing I can do really is make myself feel better. So, and then I truly believe, and I think this goes along with what Joseph is trying to say, is that if I just make myself feel better, whatever that looks like, it could be anything, um, in that moment, just try to get to a place of feeling better, then it will set off a chain of reactions that makes the whole situation better, and like maybe possibilities I haven't even thought of yet.
And that is the
For
process. And what has been preventing you from going forward is that clinging to that old perspective and taking that responsibility that is not yours, because you still feel if you are to go to that fundamental good feeling place, there is that feeling of abandonment, or
yes,
there is that
exactly.
feeling of I am
You
not
gave up,
doing my
or
part.
right, totally.
And
And that I think is totally false. I think it's so invented and put upon humans. That's that sense of like, well, if you stop worrying, then you've given up, or you've let someone down, or whatever it is.
And the reason that this feels so fundamental to you is because it is in relationship with your mother. And that is a fundamental feeling, a fundamental state of being, a fundamental
Exactly.
vibration within your being.
Yeah. And I feel like, I can cut through some of the stuff, and just, and I've said, I love you. I know this has to be hard. And I know this, you didn't expect this to happen. You came here, and, here we are. And, the world is not what it was 2 months ago. And I know it's hard on you, but I also know that you're courageous. And I know that you're incredibly resilient. And I actually admire her for her resilience and her fortitude. And I've told her that. And she said, yeah, well, I don't feel like that. I'm just weary now. And so the other thing is, the reflection that I'm getting sometimes is it's her, and she's entitled to that feeling, and I accept it. But I also see her in a different light than maybe she sees herself. And so I don't know. I don't know if I'm helping her.
That is, in other words, you're allowing her to have her own process.
I am. I am. and yet I have this sense and this perspective that she's, you know, on the one hand, really strong. And on the other hand, I can see, you know, her frailty now. So vulnerability, perhaps. And so my responsibility is wanting her to be comfortable, wanting her to be at peace. And I know those are things that I want for her. But I guess it also makes me sad. There's a sadness, you know, in me that I believe she deserves, you know, to be healthy and content at this point.
And so that's the conflict within
Yeah.
yourself. Yes.
Have
There
you
is the ideal on one hand, and then there is the belief and the practice thought on the other hand. And the tension between those two perspectives is what is creating that tug of war that feels like almost flailing about. And so, what do you want to put your priority on? What do you want to put your emphasis on? Do you want to put it on this ideal that you know, or do you want to put it on this perspective that you have? You can identify those two states, yes, and a little bit of
Yes,
that
I know.
polarity there. And
Yeah.
so I take it into a more fundamental approach and identify the feeling with each of those there.
also, I think as well, I think that everything you said makes a lot of sense, and I also think there is in sadness there's a beautiful quality. There's beauty there, however faint and however obscure it may be. But I think that you can't have the dark without the light, right? So no matter how much of each you have, there's always a quality of duality in everything.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe what I'm trying to do for myself and what I was just for anybody is to like get in touch. Obviously the sadness is coming up, and try to find the beauty in it in a sense of like maybe create something when you're in that mode that's, I don't know, if you feel artistically inclined or whatever. And it doesn't have to be a masterpiece either. It can just be like a doodle or anything, just to like let that sort of play through. And then I think that helps afterwards. You kind of have this like, okay, well, you may have this like wave of like relief for a little bit, and then you can go back to that good feeling in yourself and cultivating that, and that in turn will help your mother's situation or whoever's situation. Like I know, for example, for me right now, I'm living in a roommate situation. It's a very dear friend of mine. Unshakable bond, unbreakable bond. However, because we're quarantined together, tensions run high. We're different people after all. And I know that if I am feeling tense or awkward or self-doubting or self-pitying or self-beating up, any of that, then I get aggression and tension from my roommate. And I notice that if I just take a break and go for a bike ride or listen to music by myself for a little bit or anything like that, then, and I come back to the sense of like, okay, I'm here, I'm me, I'm good. Then when I come back into interaction with that person, things seem a bit lighter, and then she seems a little bit like more happy, and then the day can move on. So I don't know, I just
No, that's
offer that.
really, I think that's feels true. And as you were describing that sense of, okay, well, I'm now in a different place energetically, or I feel differently, things then tend to sort themselves out in a way. That is, you know, that is something that I completely, you know, I completely have experienced. And so
Right.
I hear what you're saying. And I choose that. I choose that because that feels like, you know, that feels like how we create something different, how we create what it is that we want by choosing it. And
Totally.
yeah, and so resolving, you know, this sort of tension that Joseph is talking about, you know, is that by choosing? Is that by I mean, on some level, yes, you know, and I can see the beauty in the sadness, like, because it's love, and it's love at a very deep level. The reason I feel sad is because I love her, and
Indeed.
there's a sense of love there. So I know
Mhm.
that's the beauty of it all, that we are connected, and we are, you know, we do love each other and appreciate each other. And so that fundamental kind of relationship that Joseph was talking about as well is, it's nice that it's really a blessing that we can be together. And I see that.
Mhm.
My, I guess that I'm starting to just sort of um I'm starting to wonder or kind of question my this sense of abandonment, that I don't want to abandon her. I think that that is very prevalent, that if I change my mind, if I change my feeling, if I change my, you know, and I do move through it and I feel better, that then I am like neglecting her, you know, like
And
I'm not
it
honoring her.
feels, again, big because this is a foundational, fundamental part of your state of being and how you relate to the world, because that isn't sort of the beginning of your relationship with the world in many cases. And when you can make this shift, it's going to ripple out and it's going to affect all of the different relationships in your experience. But
Wow.
having that possibility of abandonment is keeping your energy in that previous state. And of course, you want to stay there because it's familiar. And not only is it familiar, but you've practiced it so much that it is, again, the basis of so many relationships that you have within your life experience.
Yeah. But
But
what
you
does
can do it.
well, what does it feel like? I guess that I'm wondering, like, what does it feel like to just kind of be your own, like, feeling, rather than feeling for somebody else, I guess. Okay, that
And
wasn't clear.
I mean,
we
I don't think you can really help that.
we understand you can shift your energy in relationship to everything in your life. And when it comes down to having that sense of security, your own sense of security, not dependent on anyone else, not dependent on any situation or any circumstance,
Yeah.
but it is that full acceptance in this moment of that relationship that you have with that inner energy, and the trust and the knowing and the ability of that inner energy to be able to provide for you. And of course, you see how this is in reflection with your mother. It is because you all are at fundamental levels connected in that nurturing and degrees of dependence, and it feels familiar and it feels comfortable. But it is the really the releasing of that energy, and it's not a pushing away, it's not a forcing away, but it's a releasing of that. And at a very deep level, trusting that inner energy, trusting your inner guidance, trusting your eternal self, trusting source, trusting that you have non-physical guidance around you at all times, trusting what you want to call angels all around you at all times, wanting to assist you, eager to assist you, not
And I think
dependent on any physical relationship.
your mother has the exact same thing, right? Everyone
Very
comes in with
much.
this ability to connect. So
Yeah.
it's I think you may be surprised in a very awesome way how just letting those feelings move through and then finding a good feeling in yourself and cultivating that will have a positive effect on your mother's psyche and your mother's even physical strength, maybe, or who knows what could happen. Um, and I think the cool part about that connection, the cool part about what Joseph is talking about, is it's not a it's a self-giving system. It's not a it's unconditional love is what it's talking about. So there is no like, oh, but you owe me now, or you took
Yeah.
some out of that basket, so that basket's empty now, or no. I think like it's only up from there, I guess, is my point.
And that is how you provide for
Yeah,
others.
right.
Mm.
And that brings us to you, Gavin, bringing you
Ooh,
back here. Yes. What has called you here?
oh, you know what's funny is that yesterday I had a terrible day as far as just psycho-emotional. I was just feeling kind of funky. And today I had a fabulous day. It was just absolutely beautiful outside. Just really enjoyed myself. Wasn't too hard on myself. I went on a bike ride. Just got back from the bike ride, and I pick up my phone, and I see an invite from Joseph to this webinar, and I realized that it's in 2 minutes my time, and so I just connected. And I love how that happens, where it's like I get met exactly where I am because I'm just following this energy of, oh, now I'll go for a bike ride, and now I'll go home, and I'll make a left on that street because that feels good, and then when I get home, this is waiting for me. And that is just so fun and feels really nourishing to me.
And so if you're having that terrible day, it is like pulling that slingshot back. Yes. All of this potential energy, all of this. And so we want you to appreciate that tension, when you were able to let it go, is what moved you into all of this momentum. And so whenever these things start to come up, we want you to appreciate it, not to see it as something, oh, I've miscreated, or oh, I'm not the best creator at the moment, or I'm not really sure, or any of that second guessing. We want you to get to the place where you can let all of that go and say, this tension is a wonderful opportunity for me to let go and to be moved into all of this forward momentum. And on the heels of that, everything that's necessary to allow that process to continue to come forward is drawn to you.
Well, and it really is sorry, go ahead.
Available to everyone at all times. But yes.
Right. And it really is a stopping, like the choice. We keep going back to you have to make a choice. You choose. The choice really is, I'm feeling bad. I'm going to stop. I'm going to try something totally different, get out of the house, whatever it is, stay in the house, draw, whatever, anything. And just that decision, even if I don't know what I'm going to draw, I'm not really feeling inspired to draw, I'm not even a good drawer, whatever it is, just that puts a wedge in the door to allowing this connection to flow. And I forget about it all the time. And then whenever I do go ahead and just stop and try something else, it comes rushing back in, and I'm saved again. And that's part of being a human, I guess. It's this constant, trying to figure it all out and then letting it go, and realizing that you're infinite, and it's this constant dance. But
indeed,
I figured, especially in these bizarre times that we're all in, it's like the more I can just keep doing that, keep practicing that, the better. And I don't really have any answers as far as what's going to look like, but
you know what path you're on. And what you described from this process when you made this gesture is what we have been calling attention back to over and over again, is that choice point between the two different paths. But if you're so far down the path where you're feeling miserable, you don't recognize there is a choice. So you have to back it up. But if you have that subtle awareness, then when the choices do present themselves to you, you get to weigh them, you get to make the decision, you get to reaffirm your priority, what's important to you. And again, we always say go with the inner energy. And then that's the path that you're on. And you don't have to see the end of the path to continue to take one step after the next. You may get glimpses, you may get far sight, you may just see the next few steps and not know what's going to come to you. But as long as you're on the path of that inner energy, you know what you're going to be getting more of. But as you're moving down that path, there are many times that you will again see the glimpse of another path. And you'll say, oh, I recognize that as a different choice. I recognize that feeling of discomfort. I recognize that feeling of stress or grinding. And I recognize that as a choice. And I reaffirm my choice to connect and to follow that inner energy. And that's all you have to do.
It's tough because you can't see the end result. And I feel like as humans, we
so there is no end result. There is no end result.
Right. And then you have that. There is no end. So
there is no end.
So Joseph, you mentioned something just a little bit earlier about, our angels and our guides and, the energy always being with us and, you know, wherever we go, wherever we are. And I'm curious because I've been reading some things lately about beings from other planets in the galaxy, or galactic beings, I'm not sure what, also being present here on this planet.
Yes.
And that actually it's part of this whole kind of awakening that we will connect more directly with galactic beings. I
If it
don't want
is
to
your
say.
choice.
Is it?
If it is your choice. That is not everyone's path. But if you have the interest, then follow that feeling. And of course, you will attract literature, you will attract information, you will attract experiences. And it is to feel your way through all of that. If there is lots of fear in the message, if there is a dire warning and all sorts of that, we'll recognize that feeling and recognize what path that is on.
Right. No, this kind of feels like the sense of love, like the sense of love and light coming into the planet. It feels like part of like expanding to welcome, our connection with other, beings beyond the human species. I don't know. But it's just curious to me that at this time that I would kind of stumble upon some of this stuff. It's of interest to me, and I'm curious about it, but I'd never really thought about it in terms of part of our
That's
natural
good.
evolution.
That's good because you don't have any preconceived notions in
Yeah.
relationship with that galactic or greater community. And
That's,
so that's the perfect vantage point to go forward and to begin to feel things out. You don't have any strong belief, you don't have any strong opinion, you don't have anything that could be clouding your perspective about it. So you feel it out a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, always maintaining your own connection, always making that fundamental. And you can take this connection and have it express in so many different ways. And there are those points of consciousness who are going through that process as well. And so as you're letting that energy just flow, you're going to attract everything that is compatible with it. Many times it is physical beings who are letting that energy flow, as you have in this conversation. Other times it is non-physical energies, or what you could call partially physical, or any of that. But it's all going to be drawn to you as you continue to reaffirm your priority, reaffirm your connection, reaffirm your relationship with
yeah,
that and all other subjects. So
yeah.
that will give you the next thought, the next thought, the next thought. Maybe you'll read something and say, oh, I would like to connect with that energy, or read something and say, oh, that feels very familiar. And that is when you, again, if you feel a little confused, if you feel a little overwhelmed, if you feel a little not sure about how to move forward on this or any other subject, you take that step back, you reaffirm, and then the information will flow within.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way, you'll see all sorts of things show up for you always when connecting with this energy. That is when you will have your what are called sightings appear as well. Do you have questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Something I struggle with. How do you get back to this energy in inopportune moments? So, for example, you're working on a project with someone else. It's in real time. The energy's all whack. You feel bad and just want to kind of. I oftentimes feel myself wanting to just escape, and then I feel guilty for like wanting to take that time for myself, and I get that reflected back at me. And I know this work is not something to feel guilty about. I know that it's just connecting to source, which is my natural state anyway, and there's nothing to feel guilty about. But I often feel these moments of like kind of between a rock and a hard place of I can't get out right now. I would love to shift my energy immediately. Do you have any insight around like in these very like situational moments where you can't really go
So
meditate
that's
for 10
just
minutes or,
momentum.
you know?
It's just momentum playing itself out. And
Okay.
in that moment, it is for you to make the choice. Am I going to push up against this or just back off a little bit? And
Okay.
that's all that you need to do in those intense moments. Because if you push up against it, of course, it will get bigger. And if you push
Right.
back even just a little bit, in other words, oh, it's just a gentle ribbing, or I was just stating my opinion, or I was just trying to figure it out, or I was just trying to have an honest communication, or I was just trying to be forthright. Any of those things or those justifications you use to yourself or to other people, well, the feeling is still there, and that's how you know. The words, the description is not particularly important because you'll have your own realization in that moment. But if you feel the intensity get more intense or get more strong, you know you're pushing into something that is pushing back. And then that just is going to grow and grow and grow. But of course, it is just the residual of previous momentum. So to diffuse it in this moment is just to relax. It's just not to push back. It's to release a little bit. It's to release a little bit. It's to release a little bit. And to also have the understanding and the trust in the power and direction of that inner energy, because as you release it, then the inner energy can flow in. You don't have to go from one polar extreme to the other polar extreme. You just have to stop putting your energy into that sort of swirling vortex that does not feel so wonderful to you. And as you release, then inner energy will naturally flow. It will always do so. And that's why meditation is so helpful when you do have the time to do it, because you release the thought and the energy just keeps moving and moving and moving. Well, in those extreme moments, you just have to let it go. And the resolution can come much quicker than you think, because there is already so much energy in motion. That's why it feels so intense. Because there's energy, but it's meeting this conflict that you may be holding on to. So if you just release it, just with a breath, just with the we're not going to do this right now sort of attitude, then the inner energy can say, oh yes, but here's something to say, here's something to say, here's something to say, here's something to say. And so what you want to ask is, how do I get to that answer? How do I get to the good thing to say? How do I take the right behavior? How do I know what to do? Or even what should I do? And we say it is moment to moment going to be revealed to you. We can't give you the answer, get out of the room. We can't give you the answer, stay and talk about it. We can't give you the answer, journal about it or whatever. All of the different aspects will come to you, will be revealed to you in this moment when you stop that momentum.
Got it. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I have to run, but thank you so much.
Indeed. Keep running
it
with
was
it.
lovely
Yes.
chatting with you guys.
Nice to meet you, Gavin.
Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Indeed.
Bye.
I don't know how to turn it off. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy.
So when you're speaking with Gavin, the sense of, I've been having a question about separation. And I noticed that really we're having a conversation about unity, about kind of oneness, because those moment to moment to moment to moment energy is when there's no sense of separation. It's when there's no sense of I want to say definition around who I am versus who I am. And how to describe that. But so for instance, after last week speaking with you, the sense of really like committing to, the inner energy, I've been meditating on that, really sort of not working, but, just really allowing, like really noticing, really opening, really, moving with the energy. And that's why I have these incredible feelings of love and, really safety, security. And I noticed that there's just no separation. It's kind of like who I am. And that energy just carries me in a way. Yes, I consciously connect, but at the same time, it's an effortless connection without separation.
Because you're not taking it all upon yourself. You recognize the place of the conscious mind within all of this, which is to make that decision, to make it a thought game, but then you are also able to delegate and allow the greater universal energy to do what it's here to do, to work for you, to work through you.
Yeah. And I'm not so much afraid of like making a mistake of saying something stupid, or like that kind of stuff doesn't even come up. It's just like, okay, I'm in this moment now, and I know the energy is here and I'm here, and it's an opportunity to express. And when I step back and allow it like that, there is no boundary, there's no separation. It's pretty um, easy. There's a sense of freedom and ease.
Indeed.
So even though earlier I was talking about the situation with my mother, for the most part, that is my predominant experience and my desire, my choice to live in that way. So even with people, so it's funny then, I feel that, I know what's going on around us. I know, this whole pandemic thing is happening, but at the same time, I'm not attaching to that any emotion, any fear, any doubt. And yet people are saying things like, oh, the communication is going to go down for 10 days. And, I get these like people send me YouTube videos of people saying all this kind of crazy stuff. And who knows, maybe it's true. But I don't feel like I have to do anything. Like it doesn't. So in that respect, am I now creating my own reality the way that I want it to be, peaceful, easy, without that drama, carefree, go with the flow?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I
you can
thought so.
tell in those moments when they send you the video, how does this feel?
Yeah.
And you
Yucky.
have that subtle awareness in the early stages, then you
Yeah.
just let it go and move on. But in that very moment that you start to identify the yucky feeling with that, the inner energy says, well, here's the solution. And if you're
Yeah.
able to let the yucky go, then the solution comes right in. And sometimes the solution has nothing to do with this seemingly giant issue, which for you will be a non-issue.
Yeah. Right.
Period. In
Not
relationship to all things.
in relation. Thank you for saying that. In relationship to all things. Exactly. Yeah. So it's more about, like, even the things that I thought were boundaries before, and I recognize this is sort of a process, like, um, oh, I have to worry every month about, making sure that there's X amount of dollars in the bank and that kind of stuff. I don't worry about it. I believe in it. I believe that it's all working out, that everything is, you know, coming to me that I need, that, I am living in ease and joy and freedom. And I really believe that. And it's about having that then kind of like happen in other ways, in all things, as you said. So that thing that I used to focus on like so intently now is just a part of this sort of beautiful flow of everything.
Yes.
Like, yeah, yeah,
All aspects of your life. And because you have that intention so deeply to connect with the inner energy, it's going to express itself through every aspect of your life because it's who you are. This eternal inner energy, this eternal self doesn't limit itself to only the things that are supposed to be important, but it addresses every aspect of yourself.
thank you. Yeah,
And that's wonderful because it's also going to bring up all of the places within
there it is.
yourself because that's your intention. Now, you could limit yourself. We don't really think that you could because you have so much momentum going, but one could recognize this and say, this is all too much. I just want, name the outcome, and make that their defining thing. But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't feel so thoroughly wonderful to pinch yourself off.
I think that I've realized I've done that in the past, and that it, as you said, it doesn't feel so wonderful. It feels like, well, wait a minute. there's more to this than just this one aspect. That having an integrated sense of the energy throughout my day, throughout my life experience, is much more um, um, calming. It's much more peaceful. It's much more enjoyable than just saying, all right, well, I just want it here in this aspect. And if I get this right, because I've done this, then everything else, doesn't matter. No, turns out everything matters in a way, because
It
everything's
does.
connected. Everything.
And whatever you're feeling in this moment matters very much because it affects your overall state of being.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So by saying, oh, I'll deal with this later, as we've discussed, or saying, oh, this isn't so important, I won't even shift my energy on this because who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's still having an effect in your
Mm-hmm.
overall state of being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if you're upset about something that you don't think should be upsetting you, the energy is still upset and it is
Yeah.
still affecting everything that comes forward to you. So we want you to accept the importance of your process. Whatever's drawn to you, whatever that choice point is that's coming up, it's important because you created it in your experience. And so it's an extension of your being. Now, will you ever finish this process? No, you will not. You'll always be in that creative refinement. You will always be in that state of refining the focus and refining the intent and so forth. But
Mm-hmm.
I
I
just,
did a silly thing this afternoon. I went to Whole Foods, and they have a line outside. Like, you have to stand on the numbers, in order, because they only allow 20 people in the door. So I was like walking up to the line, and two other people were walking up to the numbers at the same time, and they got there before I did. So they had two numbers ahead of me, and I was like, oh, darn. And then I was like, what? Where did that come from? And I was like, that's ridiculous. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. I can certainly stand two numbers back, but I didn't. I said, oh, well, I guess I must have some, like, fear about, oh, I'm not going to get in. Or so I paid attention to it for a minute, and then I let it go. Both of those people left. And then I moved up two spots. It was pretty funny how everything just kind of changed after I changed. I was like, what?
and again, it seems you could call it small, you could call it trivial, but we think you accepted a great truth from that.
Yeah.
And so it is big, it is important.
Yeah. So it's these things, as you said, kind of just goes on and on and on with almost everything. And I'm wondering if the awareness just becomes maybe a little bit um, more natural, like, that wasn't a big reaction that I had. It was a kind of a silly thing that I saw myself doing, but I recognized that I had it, didn't deny it. And it went away pretty quickly, like, shifted really quickly. But I wonder if even those kinds of things, I could see them before they happen, kind of.
Yes, very much. But it's an opportunity for you to make that little tweak. And so it's a good thing. Now, that's what you could call early. We think that that is an early awareness,
You do? Okay. Yeah.
but it can get more refined and it will continue to always get more refined as you have that awareness of all of these different shades and gradations and intensities of energy. And you just step further back into your choice, the arena of choice, if you would, where you are able to select what you want to incorporate, what you want to go forward with, what you want to experience.
Yeah. Almost like ahead of time through intention.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about in terms of momentum earlier. In other
Yeah.
words, you had a little bit of momentum, but you didn't push against it. In other words, you didn't tap on their shoulder. You see, and that's sort of an exaggerated. In other words, many times people do that in their mind.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right. Well, this is good. This is good. This is really good. Um, I think that probably does it for today, though. Thank you so much for just listening to me and helping with the whole thing about my mother. I feel like the love is the right answer, and stepping back sometimes. Now that I see it, I recognize when I step back, it's hard for me. But at the same time, I also realize that I'm not abandoning her. I'm not. I'm not. You know, in fact, the love that I can express through my connection with my inner being might even be helpful. So,
It is.
yeah.
And you'll see that play itself out. But we can't talk about all those wonderful things that are going to come down the line, because that will cause you to shift your focus in such a subtle way that you end up shooting yourself in the foot many times.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's after a conversation like this, where you're flowing clearly and the energy is moving, that you can just sit for a moment and just ask for the insight, and it'll
Mm.
flow up and it'll take on a meaning that is unique to you. And that's when you go forward with that.
Mm. That feels right. Yeah.
You will know.
Well, thank you, Joseph.
Very much so.
I don't have any other questions. You answered them all.
Enjoy the process. We are complete. Hey.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi.
Well, that was fun to meet